yesterday we spoke about the idea of gratitude, showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu gratitude, and also part of the idea, the Mefarshim say, part of the idea of this mitzvah of Bikurim, of bringing the first fruits, is one of the recurring themes in the Torah, which is it's one of the recurring themes in the Torah, which is not to fall into the trap of kochi ve'otzem yodi, meaning my strength did it. Agriculture carries that danger, because you go out to the field, you plant, you plow, you water it, you cultivate it, you harvest it. There's a whole lot of I in there. And if you notice, it's very easy to fall into the trap of I did it, that was my accomplishment, I made it. And therefore the Torah says, bring the Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash to ascribe your success to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now if you take a look back, look all the way back in Parshas Noach, on page page 30, where is it? No, later. When he comes out of the Teva, on page, it's on page 42, good guess. Strike four. You didn't have a good day over there. It was a good try. But a few of the darts didn't even hit the board. On page 42, 4 lines from the bottom, just giving you a hard time. It says, and then 2 lines from the bottom on page 42. Vayochel Noach isha adama. Noach became a man of the earth. Vayita karem. Now that's take a what do you go? Take a chumash. The chumash are all over the shelves there. Vayochel Noach isha adama v'yita karem. Noach planted a vineyard. He became a man of the earth and he planted the vineyard. And the question is why? It's a strange turn of phrase. Why does it call him a man of the earth? Why doesn't it just say? It could just say Noach planted a vineyard. Why does he become an Ish HaAdama? Why do you need that introduction? He becomes an Ish HaAdama, man of the earth. So the Mefarshim say, when I say Mefarshim, by the way, it could be one of the Mefarshim. It just say, when I say the commentaries, it could be one commentary on any given thing. But one of the commentaries at least says that the nature of earth is addictive. He became a man of the earth. When you're a farmer, it's an addictive pursuit. You're up early. You're out there all day, every day, and you're doing it. And you're on your knees, and you're planting and harvesting everything else. So here the Torah says, in order to avoid that pitfall, that danger of kochi ve'otzem yadi, I did it, I planted it, I take what you did and now give it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the idea we mentioned yesterday. Now, you go up to the Beis HaMikdash, and then we're going to see an interesting. This is just an example of several others which you yourself have heard. The Torah says, "V'lokach hakohen hatena miyadecha." 9th line from the top. V'lokach hakohen hatena miyadecha. The Torah takes the basket. V'hinicho lifnei mizbach Hashem Elokecha. And he puts the basket in front of the mizbeach. Now, there are different types of containers that people use. Wealthy people brought, maybe a gold bowl and filled it with fruits of Jezreel. To say it could be a silver bowl, and the poor people brought a wicker basket. And the Gemara says that the wicker basket, when the coin took from the poor people, he took the entire basket. They didn't get the basket back. When he gave it from the gold bowl or the silver bowl, so then, poured out the fruits and he gave him back the bowl. The poor man, specifically the poor man's wicker basket that he brought to the Beis HaMikdash with his produce, the coin kept that. The coin kept the basket. With the produce, he kept the basket. Why?
Not more of a question.
Answer my question first. Why would he keep the wicker basket? The poor man's basket he kept, and the rich man's basket he didn't.
It was harder for the poor man to get the basket. The rich man could just buy another one, so...
And therefore what?
He actually had to work for the fruits.
And therefore what? You're on the right track, and therefore what?
It was more of a sacrifice for him.
Oh, that means the poor man put more of his heart into it.
Yeah.
For a poor man, it's more of a sacrifice. To bring what a poor man brings in a wicker basket, that's more beloved. That's more beloved to God. The poor man's offering is more beloved than the rich man's fancy basket. Not only that, the rich man may be, a little bit haughty, coming and walking into the base. Hey, everybody, look at my golden basket over here. The poor man, according to some of the commentaries, it's embarrassing for the poor man to take it and pour it out and then give him back his wicker basket. And one of the things that we always want to do with poor people is spare them embarrassment. One of the biggest mitzvahs in tzedakah is sensitivity to the poor man. What do you call it? Do you need a yarmulke? You need I have a hat over here if you need. The poor man. One of the things when he gives tzedakah is to try to spare the poor man his feelings, is not to embarrass the poor man, and there's a tremendous sensitivity that's needed. If you give a poor man money, and you give it with a sour face, you're better off not giving it because you hurt his feelings. You have to be very, very careful. That's one of the reasons tzedakah has to be given discreetly. Because it's bad enough. The Gemara says when a man needs a handout, so he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed. He changes like the colors of a peacock. His face changes like the colors of a peacock when he needs to take a handout, when you have to accept money from others. And there's another statement in the Gemara that he experiences Gehenna by having to take from other people. There's actually a medrash that says that if you take all of life's suffering, obviously with limitation, but if you take all of life's suffering and put it on one side of the scale, and you put poverty on the other side of the scale, poverty outweighs it. Because when a person's poor, he's got all issue, everything becomes an issue. Everything becomes an issue. And in marriage, the Gemara says, I'll get to you, hold for a few minutes. Where the Gemara says in marriage, the fighting starts when the money runs dry. And the majority of fights in marriage are over money, even for people who have money. How to spend money, when to spend money, that sort of thing. The majority of fights, the Gemara says that a man should honor his wife. He should spend more on his wife than he could afford. How do you like that? Spend more on her than you could afford. And Rava said to his Talmidim, you should honor your wives in order to get rich. And honor over here means spend. And then you yourself will get rich. And on Yontif, you have an obligation to buy your wife something. Every man has an obligation on Yontif, Erev Yontif, the same way you have to buy a lulav and an esrog, which is a Torah command. You have to buy your wife an outfit on Yontif. Doesn't mean you have to go into the store and get it. You have to give her money to buy her an outfit, or shoes, or diamonds, or whatever she wants. A man has an obligation, Torah obligation, to give his wife money. It hurts. It hurts. But you got to do it. Like all Torah obligations, you got to do it. No different than any other. And sometimes, if you got the money, it's great. If you don't, if it means, I heard a story once. A guy went to people, when they buy a lulav and an esrog, you then go to the rabbi to ask the rabbi, is it kosher, and how good is the lulav and the esrog? So there was a guy learning in Kollel, bought an esrog, and it was a beautiful esrog. And he went to the Rav, and he showed the Rav the esrog. So the Rav said, this esrog is not for you. The guy thought, wow, it looked like a good esrog. I thought it was a great esrog. And I'm the guy who keep all the mitzvahs, and when the Rav is saying it's not for you, he said, what's wrong with the esrog? He says, nothing's wrong with the esrog. That's the problem. He says, what do you mean? He says, well, if there's nothing wrong with it, it's a perfect esrog. That means you're paid a lot of money for it, or you're going to pay a lot of money. First, you take it on consignment to see if it's good. You're going to be paying a lot of money for the esrog. You can't afford that. Buy a cheaper esrog and use the other money to buy your wife an outfit, because that's something you also have to do. And people forget that that's an absolute Torah command. You have to buy her an outfit for Yontif. You have to buy her an outfit. Now, here, the poor man, he's embarrassed. So we take the basket, so you don't empty it out, and give him back the basket. That's what the Torah says. And there's a saying that Medrash says, based on this principle, people had an expression in the old days, poverty follows the poor. How do you like that? And you thought that was something we came up with nowadays, right? That's all, it's all there. You ever hear the expression to pull the wool over his eyes? Where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that comes from? Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov pulled the wool over Yitzchak's eyes. The writing on the wall from the book of Daniel. All these expressions, they all come out of, it's all in Torah, gentlemen. It's all in the Torah. So the over here, the Torah says that we got to yesterday where the guy's actions are the statement. Somebody's going to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, back to the Noah became like he was a man of the earth.
Yes.
Isn't it also because he became addicted to his vineyard? He became a drunk and alcoholic?
Yeah, but that's only afterwards. First it says he became a man of the earth. And it says he became a man of the earth. Then the Torah, I heard the question. The first it says he became a man of the earth. Then the Torah goes on to say what happened as a result. But the first thing it says is when you get involved in agriculture, you become a man of the earth. Then he planted the vineyard. Then he made wine, and he drank the wine, trying to recreate the original sin of Adam Harishon, to rectify that sin, because of course one opinion of Gemara was with the grapes. And Noach felt that we're reestablishing the world again because it's a new world now, and so on and so forth. But the first step was addiction to the earth. You got to be a farmer. You got to be a farmer, but you're gonna be completely involved. It's complete involvement, and it's not there is an implied criticism there. That Noach, when he comes out, and the first thing he does, he gets a little heavily involved in that. So here the Torah says, it's an agricultural society. You have a right to be a farmer. Be careful that it doesn't go to your head. And again, it's very, very deceptive. Now, and there's also the element that people just love those first fruits. I don't know if you ever had relatives who grew cucumbers or tomatoes, or maybe you yourself grew cucumbers or tomatoes. Few people in the world are as annoying as a person who is growing their own cucumbers and tomatoes, because they give you regular updates on the cucumbers, and I really don't care, and they'll tell you all about, right? Have you ever met something like that? Hey, the cucumbers, they broke through. I don't really care right now. I'm in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl right now. It's a close game. Leave me alone. And then the big day comes. The tomatoes also, and they're just like. And then they go out to the field and they're talking to their plants. I really, I get a life, and the funniest is when the big day comes and they bring it in. And they come to the table with this cucumber, this decrepit-looking, filthy, decrepit-looking cucumber. You want some of my cuke? Frankly, no. We bought 3 for $1 at the supermarket, which are beautiful and tasty, and I'll take those. And they eat it. You don't know what you're missing. Oh, yes, I do. And why are they so connected? So the Gemara says, "Rotza odem bekav shelo mitisha kabin shel chavero." A person wants 1 bushel of his own rather than 9 that somebody else gives him. I don't. I'd rather you give me. But the psychology, there's a connection to something you produce. Therefore, the Torah says, break that connection, bring it to the base of English. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk tests. We have to move ahead a little bit. So then, when the guy comes to the base of Mikdash, he makes a declaration. I'm going to tell you a concept over here, gentlemen, which you can't ask me any questions on it. You have to think about what's being said and understand that this is obviously not the plain meaning, but like we say, Shivim Panim La Torah, there are many different approaches to Torah, and there's a level called Remez. Remez, which means that it's alluding to an idea, and you take the idea, and it's obviously not the plain meaning, but it's a phenomenal idea. If you take a look at Pasuk Test, the guy who comes to the base of Mikdash then makes a whole declaration. He starts out with a historical review, the Jewish people, that Lavan wanted to destroy us, and Paro wanted to destroy us, and Hashem in his kindness protected us and took us out of Egypt, and so on and so forth. There's another Chumash here if you want, because you could take your own over here. There, just the page 1068. So then he says like this: Vayivienu el hamakom hazeh. God brought us to this place. Vayiten lanu esa aretz azos. He gave us this land, Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash, a land that flows with milk and honey. And if you take a look at Rashi, it's the left column, Pasuk Tes. Rashi says, it's halfway down the left column in Rashi. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Va'aviyenu el hamakom hazeh ze Beis Hamikdash. He brought us to the Beis Hamikdash. Vayiten lanu esa aretz, and he gave us this land. Kimashma'o. Exactly what it sounds like, the land of Israel. Left column, halfway down. So the Rashi says that he brought us, on the pasuk that says Vayuvienu el hamakom hazeh, he brought us to the Beis Hamikdash. Vayiten lanu es haaretz hazos, he gave us this land. Anybody got a problem with that? Anybody got a problem with the pasuk? Any problem with anything jump off the page at you? Vayivienu el hamakom hazeh, brought us to the Beis Hamikdash. Vayiten lanu es haaretz, he gave us this land. Mike, nothing bothering you about that? Oh, in other words, what'd you say? It's in the wrong order. Of course, he brought us to the land, and only many years, 480 years later, the Beis Hamikdash was built. And suddenly he brought us to the Beis Hamikdash, and then he gave us the land. What's going on? So I'll tell you what the plain meaning is. I'll tell you even an absolutely shocker. The plain meaning is that how do we know that the land belongs to us? In other words, you're right, he brought us to the land of Israel. What's the proof that the land of Israel is actually given to us? Because there was a Beis Hamikdash. And there are a lot of miracles in the Beis Hamikdash. God wouldn't be doing miracles for people who don't belong in the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, there are a lot of funny things happen. And Vayivienu el hamakom, he brought us to the Beis Hamikdash, which ratifies the fact that that this land belongs to us. That's the proof, not the chronological order. The proof that the land belongs to us is that we have a Beis Hamikdash. And then the Beis Hamikdash, with the miracles that took place in the Beis Hamikdash. So why are miracles happening? God doesn't do miracles for sinners. So that the Beis Hamikdash becomes the proof. But there is an opinion that is chronological order. There is an opinion that is chronological. You know the chronology. You know where this comes from? There's a medrash. The medrash says that on the night of the Korban Pesach, when the Jewish people were in Egypt, and remember they shechted the lamb and they had the Korban Pesach, a little bit of roast lamb. We could go for that for lunch, right? Some roast lamb. That'd be pretty good. Make a nice shawarma. The night of the Beis Hamikdash, they were taken out of Egypt and brought to the Eretz Yisrael, to the Beis Hamikdash, to do the Korban Pesach. Then they were put back in Egypt, have to be taken out of Egypt. Now, you can do with that medrash what you want. Yeah, obviously, you get 1,000,001 questions, but the Beis Hamikdash wasn't built, and if they're already out, why do they have to be put back, and so on and so forth. But one of the Forshim says that based on that medrash, the chronological order, so what did they get to first, the Beis Hamikdash or Eretz Yisrael? Based on that medrash, they got to the Beis Hamikdash first, because they were brought out of Egypt to the Beis Hamikdash, put back in Egypt, then eventually brought out and brought to the Beis Hamikdash. That's what the medrash says. Okay. Now, what does it mean? Yeah, Boris, go ahead.
Yeah, there's an odd similarity to the Muhammad's night trip, right? What they say that why is Jerusalem the holy city for the Muslims?
What do they say?
Because Muhammad did a night journey. He was
Oh, did he?
And he was brought by the angels to Jerusalem.
Oh, was he?
To this holy place.
Uh-huh.
And then went back to Medina or Mecca.
No kidding.
And that is the justification of Islam for this being
Uh-huh.
the city.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like
Interesting. And then the LSD wore off, and he came back to reality. Yeah. So if there is such an idea, they probably got it from us. Yeah, probably, like many ideas. Well, if you look at Christianity, first of all, they have something called Palm Sunday. Where do you get the palm? Why palms? Well, you could come up with something else. Yeah, specifically palms. Why don't you come up with like Oak Sunday? Or where did you get that idea from? Or even baptism. Why has it got to be with water? Why do you baptize them by having drinks of vodka? Why is it baptism? Where did water come from? Many things come. Isn't it interesting how they have a holiday? They have a holiday where you dress up in what do you call it? With trick or treating and masquerading, that sort of thing. Is that interesting? What's that?
That's not Christianity. Halloween is a pagan holiday.
Pagans, good, whoever it is. But where they, we have a Purim. Halloween's not a Christian holiday? You mean I was eating the candies for no reason? But all this, you see a lot of things that come out of. Do you know that the original? They have Christmas lights. They put out the lights on Christmas around the Christmas tree. Do you know the lights that they put out those Christmas? Do you know that the early Christians? Do me a favor. Wait till I'm finished talking before you interject. The early Christians had 8 lights. It started with 8 lights. Isn't that interesting? And it's in December, right around Hanukkah time. How do you like that? So what a coincidence. A lot of things that you find, even the Christmas tree, I don't know exactly where they got the tree from. But at the end of the day, I actually heard a story once, this Jewish family, from family, they move into, they're living in this non-Jewish town. Because my father had to be in this town for a few years on business. So this Jewish family, they're living in the town. So you got Avi and Yitzi and Yankee, the little Jewish kids. They're playing with the non-Jewish kids. Sorry, Billy, Johnny, and Tommy. So when it's Christmas, and all of a sudden, Mr. Murphy comes home. He says, "Hey, Johnny, Billy, Tommy, help me bring in the tree." So they start bringing it. So the little Jewish kids, say, "Mr. Murphy, can we help too?" He says, "Yeah, sure, guys." So they start schlepping in the tree. So as they're bringing in the tree, the first kid says to him, Avi says to him, "Well, Mr. Murphy, how tall does the tree have to be?" He says, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It can be big, little, it doesn't really matter." And Yitzi says to him, "Well, how close to the window does it have to be?" He says, "Oh, it doesn't matter. You can put it in the middle of the room if you want, for all it doesn't make a difference." The Yankee says, "Well, Mr. Murphy, what if some of the leaves start turning brown? Is it possible?" He said, "What are you guys asking so many questions for? It's just a lousy tree. What do you want from a tree?" The answer is that, we're conditioned. Everything's got, it's halachic. I don't know where the tree comes from. The bottom line is, many of the things, it all comes out of the Torah. All comes out of it. Getting water out of the rock. You ever hear that? This guy could get water out of a rock. Where's it got straight from Moshe Rabbeinu in the rock? It's all coming out of the Torah. It's all coming from there. So I didn't know that about the Mohammed. He did jump somewhere, didn't he? Mohammed, apparently, he did jump. Didn't he jump from the one dome to the other?
Like Medina to Al-Aqsa or something.
Something like that. That he did. He did.
From Saudi Arabia.
And he jumped, yeah. But then they don't tell you the end of the story. They just walk around on crutches for a couple of weeks. I heard he sprained his ankle real bad when it happened. But okay, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. The good jump though. So whatever it is, it comes straight out of the Torah. No, I know. Get ready for this, but you can't ask me any questions. Okay, I'm just telling you a concept because it's built on a couple of things, but at the end of the day, you'll see how it all comes together. So Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash, the land that flows with milk and honey, and obviously it's a way of describing how rich the land of Eretz Yisrael is naturally, and the Gemara talks about sheep who were dripping milk. There were sheep who were dripping their milk, and it mixed in with fig honey that was dripping down from a tree, and it all mixed together. One of the Amoraim saw them, and he said, "See a fulfillment of Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. The milk and the honey is all together." Okay, that's the plain meaning, and that's certainly the idea of what the Torah is describing. But where does honey come from? When we think of there's another type of honey. There's date honey, and there's a honey that comes from bees. It comes from bee honey. Now, it's a strange thing, because bee honey is something that the source of the honey is actually not kosher, which is the bees. Yet, what it produces is honey, which we're allowed to consume. Okay? Now, that's where honey comes from. Where does milk come from? So they're different. Milk comes from a cow, comes from a camel. You could only get, if the milk comes from a non-kosher animal, you cannot drink it. You can only drink milk that comes from a kosher animal. There's another type of milk which is called mother's milk. And the mother's milk in the Gemara, if you study Tractate Nida, when the Gemara describes a mother's milk, so what actually happens is when a woman gives birth, so a woman no longer menstruates, that system shuts down, and then the milk kicks in and she's able to nurse her baby. The terminology of the Gemara is, in the Gemara in its usual terse manner, the Gemara says the blood turns into milk. Now it obviously doesn't. The blood itself doesn't turn into milk, meaning that the blood system shuts down and the milk system, one of the miracles of creation, just remarkable, just one of the miracles of creation. And so the Gemara puts it in terms of that the blood turns into milk. Now again, symbolically, taking that statement of the Gemara on a literal level, even though it doesn't mean it literally, to say that blood turns to milk sounds like something permissible for consumption is coming from something forbidden for consumption. So remarkably, both of these expressions in the Pasuk could be understood as a description of something permissible coming from something forbidden. So now we understand, what does it mean, Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash? The answer is that the land of Israel lends itself to helping people who were in a situation of forbidden to turn their lives around into a situation of permissible. It's an Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. You know who said that? Reb Meir Shapiro of Lublin, the Daf Yomi, Reb Meir Shapiro, who had debated the Daf Yomi. He's the one who came up with that interpretation. That means that if you look around, so many people have come to Israel, the last thing on their mind, last thing they were thinking about is anything about religion, yet they come to Eretz Yisrael, and next thing you know, they're sending text messages home or emails or whatever to their parents. Oh, by the way, I've become a religious fanatic. See you in a few years. I'll be in a yeshiva now. That sort of thing. What happened over here? The answer is it's not just because, Ohr Somayach got to them or somebody. It's much deeper than that. You see, what is the other name for Eretz Yisrael? What's it called? What's Eretz Yisrael called? The Holy Land. That's true. What else? Eretz Tzvi means it expands like a deer. It's called the land that, like the deer's hide expands to hold the body. That's what the Gemara says. But it's also called, what's the original name? Eretz Canaan. Eretz Canaan. It's the land of Canaan. What does Canaan mean? What does Canaan? Good, you're on a roll, babes. You're on a roll. Give him a high five. What does Canaan mean? What does Canaan mean? Canaan means, it comes from the Hebrew word hachna'ah. Hachna'ah means submission. That means that people, if you look in this is remarkable. If you go to, let's say, downtown Pittsburgh, you don't necessarily see tremendous submission. You know, if you go to downtown London, you won't see too much submission. It's not a place that lends itself necessarily to submission. You go to 1 square mile in the old city here, and you basically have every religion in the world represented there. Isn't that interesting? What do you got? You got Muslims, you got Jews, Christians, Armenians, Greek Orthodox, modern, you got everything's over there. How is that? How do you explain that? How come you don't have that in central Kansas City? Right? Or in Butte, Montana? You know, no, it's not known for, well, because it's a land that lends itself to submission. It's Eretz Canaan. The pagans submitted to idol worship. Everybody who comes, you're going to submit. Now, either you're going to submit to the right thing or you're going to submit to the wrong thing. One way or another, you're going to submit. It's a land that lends itself to submission. So a Jew who is got the neshama of a Jew and once somebody's looking for it, you're going to come to Eretz Yisrael. It lends itself much more to submission to God than, let's say, New Mexico, Las Vegas, or Detroit. You don't have that same spiritual push to submit, and therefore it's called an Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. By the way, Rabbi Shapiro of Lublin was a little boy, and he was in a shul. He said about himself, he was a little boy. He was about 9 years old, and he was talking to a friend of his about this idea of the Daf Yomi, which he eventually introduced which became something that took on, the entire Jewish people got involved in learning the Daf Yomi. But Rabbi Shapiro was about 9 years old. He was talking to a friend of his about this idea, about this Daf Yomi. And just then an older man in shul passed by. He said, come on, Yingala, don't dream. Just go learn your Chumash. And Rabbi Shapiro said, you see from here, parents should never discourage kids from dreaming. Let them dream. Let him dream. What'll happen? Either he'll do it, he won't do it. Let him dream. Let him dream. What if that guy would have discouraged me? What if I would have never come up with it because that old man discouraged me in Joel? So never try to discourage. Later on in life, and by the way, this is a mistake parents sometimes make. Mothers especially make this mistake. Your kid says something dramatic. Your 9-year-old kid says, Mommy, when I'm 16, I'm going to get a motorcycle. I say, motorcycle, are you crazy? Dangerous. Mother goes absolutely nuts. When my kid says stuff like that, Dad, I'm going to get a motorcycle, I say, really? What color? Really? Oh, yeah, Kawasaki? Oh, that's great. Oh, that's terrific. You got a lot of time between 9 and 16. And just be happy at 9 years old, they're still talking to you, because at 16 they aren't. So just be happy. So you'll deal with his motorcycle. Never discourage the kid. That's what it says. Now, I want to show you something, another point here. Take a look at Pasuk Yud Gimel. Here it's talking about, the Torah goes on to the subject of clearing out the tithes. You have a backlog of tithes. You didn't, there are various halachas of what you have to tithe and when you have to tithe it. And sometimes there's a backlog and it accumulates. You have grain that you never got out of your granaries, which you're supposed to give to the Levium, to the orphans, to the widows. And then the Torah goes on and talks about in the 4th year, you have to get it out of your, and there's also a certain a formula the statement that you make. Now watch this. And again, we're going to take it slightly out of context. The Torah says, like the 3rd line on page 1070, till the 3rd line from the top. Marital lifnei Hashem Elokecha, you shall say before Hashem your God, Bi'arti hakodesh min habayis. I have removed the tithes from the home. V'gam nasativ l'Levi. I've given the portion to the Levi. V'lager to the convert. La yosom the orphan. V'la almona. Kechol mitzvoscha asher tzivisani. Like all your mitzvahs that you've commanded me. Lo avarti mi mitzvosecha. I did not transgress your mitzvahs. V'lo shachachti. I didn't forget. So there's an idea here that, you're making a statement. I did not neglect the mitzvahs and I did not forget. And almost tongue-in-cheek, but not so much tongue-in-cheek in practical application, because I've seen it over and over. One of the commentaries says, there was once a movie. I don't know if any of you guys saw this. There was a movie, I think it was called The Bridge, either The Bridge Over the River Kwai or The Bridge on the River Kwai. Bridge over the River Kwai. Now, it's a brilliant movie, and the theme of the movie, and I've actually, sometimes I'll say, well, this guy's suffering from Bridge over the River Kwai syndrome, and it's a brilliant movie. And the theme of the movie is you have the Allied POWs are captured by the Japanese in World War II, and the Allies are told they have to build a bridge. The bridge has to be, it's a strategic bridge. It has to be built over this River Kwai. And the highest ranking Allied officer is played by Alec Guinness. And he's a British colonel, and he gets into the project. And he gets into the building of this bridge project. And his own men are looking at him like, hey, chill out, as they say. There's a war going on over here, and you're helping the enemy. You're a little too enthusiastic about the project. And what's happened is he's lost sight of the bigger picture, and he's totally focused on this bridge. Absolutely, the theme is a brilliant theme. And I've used this to describe sometimes people's approach in Yiddishkeit. A classic example is a guy who's told by the doctor you can't fast on Yom Kippur. What would your reaction be if, let's say, a person had a cold, or if a person had a bad virus, and then a couple days before Yom Kippur, and you go to the doctor says, listen, your resistance is weak. You need to eat and drink on Yom Kippur. What would your reaction be? Let's say you were told that. What would your reaction be?
All right.
What's that?
All right.
Would you be upset? Boris, you'd be upset. Why? Why? It's a mitzvah. That's exactly what the Bridge of the River Kwai syndrome is. If a doctor tells you have to eat, that becomes the mitzvah. And a person who's upset about it means he's lost focus on why he's fasting to begin with. And this is, by the way, this is a much bigger problem than you think with especially with older people. The guy's been fasting for 50 years or 60 years. The doctor says, well, you can't fast. I not fast on Yom Kippur? I have to fast on Yom Kippur. It's Yom Kippur. You don't even stop and think, why are you fasting on Yom Kippur? And a person has to realize Yom Kippur does not exist in a vacuum. Yom Kippur, and if the there was a Hasidic Rebbe, the older Hasidic Rebbe. So the doctor calls in his sons, and he says, the Rebbe, I've been tracking his health patterns. The Tata is going to have to eat on Yom Kippur. You're going to have to tell him he has to eat on Yom Kippur. So the sons are like, oh boy. Okay, Fievel, you tell him. He says, no, Zalman, you tell him. He says, no, let's get Herschel to tell him. So finally they said all three of them will tell him together. So they all come into the room and say, this is the Chassidish Rebbe. They said, Tate, we spoke to the doctor. The doctor said you're going to have to eat on Yom Kippur. He goes, oh, okay. So they're waiting for the volcano. They said, are you upset? He goes, no. Why? He says, I don't know if you understood. The doctor said you can't fast at all on Yom Kippur, that you're going to have to eat. He said, oh, okay. He says, why aren't you upset? So why should I be upset? He said, you can't fast. You have to eat. He says, look, for 70 years, I've served Hashem by fasting on Yom Kippur. This year, I'm going to serve Hashem by eating on Yom Kippur. What's the problem? Sometimes the person has to realize there's a bigger picture over here. Why are we doing it? Sometimes people, classically, two guys are fighting over who's going to be the shliach tzibur to daven when somebody for yahrzeit. Why do you want to daven for the Yamud? Well, because a merit for my father's neshama. Yeah, so you're going to yell at this other Jew as a merit for your father's neshama, so you could get out of my way so I could do this mitzvah. You understand? That becomes a person's lost sight. That's what I call bridge over the river Kwai syndrome. Sometimes you have a guy, have you ever been elbowed while somebody's going to kiss the Sefer Torah? You ever been pushed out of the way so he can fulfill the minhag of kissing the Sefer Torah, right? That means he's lost sight. Why are you pushing? Rabbi Yankov Kamenetsky once had a guy in his community who fasted on Yom Kippur, even though he would not eulogize him. The guy died because the guy did not eat on Yom Kippur like he was told, and he actually died. As a result, he died. Rebecca says, I'm not going to eulogize the guy. The guy violated the halacha. And you're not allowed to, you lost sight of it. And people sometimes lose sight of why am I doing this at all? They once said to the Chazon Ish, he was counseling somebody, a very broken individual, the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish was speaking to this guy. And somebody came to the Chazon Ish and said to the Chazon Ish, mincha. Chazon Ish kind of nodded. He didn't move. And eventually he missed mincha. So the guy came back and said to the Chazon Ish, he said, by the way, you missed mincha. Chazon Ish says, why do we daven mincha? Well, what do you mean, why do we daven? He says, why do we daven mincha? We daven mincha because we have to serve Hashem. He says, well, what was I doing? I was in the middle of counseling a broken-hearted person. What is that? That's serving Hashem. So now, be careful. Be careful. You cannot miss mincha, gentlemen. Let's get that clear. No missing mincha. I was serving Hashem. I was playing tennis. That was how I exercised to serve Hashem. I'm only telling you, it was the Chazon Ish. You have to be that. Once you write a major volume on Torah, then come to me and we'll let you miss mincha also. But until that point, I'm only telling you as an extreme example of keeping everything in focus, keeping the proper perspective. Why am I bringing this up? Look at what the guy says. Lo avarti mi mitzvosecha, 5th line. I did not neglect your mitzvah. Velo shachachti, I didn't forget that I was involved in serving you when doing the mitzvah. I wasn't just doing the mitzvah. I didn't forget what I was doing when I was doing the mitzvah. Yeah, don't get caught up. Don't get kidnapped by the mitzvah. It's such an important concept. Don't get kidnapped. What are you getting upset about? What are you getting upset about? It's like I've seen people where a guy invites somebody to his house. The guy says, no, I'm not going to be able to. Oh, come on. Come on to my, you're getting insulted. A guy wants to give somebody a ride on the street. And I don't, I'd rather walk right now. But I want to do chesed. Thank you. I'll kidnap you for chesed. You keep the proper perspective. Lo shechachti. I didn't forget. I didn't lose sight of what the goal is over here. What I'm trying to accomplish. Somebody had a question. Yeah, please.
So basically, what Rabbi is saying is, we should strive to serve Hashem ideally through the commandments, but there are cases where you may not be able to do a certain thing because it would be more reasonable if you did, because Hashem is requiring you to do something else, so you have to stay on track. That your main goal is to serve Hashem, not
correct.
Just to do the specific things that you think
correct.
serve Hashem.
Correct. That's exactly correct. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our goal is to serve Hashem. Our goal isn't to do the mitzvahs. Our goal is to serve Hashem. The way we serve Hashem is by doing the mitzvahs. But if it means not doing a specific mitzvah, because that becomes a way of serving Hashem, right? That becomes a way of serving Hashem. So, for example, the Gemara says that a person who is taking care of a sick person is exempt from being in the sukkah. Cholin u'mishamshen p'turin min hasukkah. So if you're taking care of a sick person, you're eating your Savo, oh my goodness, but I'm missing the sukkah right now. But you're exempt, you're doing this mitzvah. Osek b'mitzvah, patur mina mitzvah. When you're involved in one mitzvah, you're exempt from another mitzvah. So a man is helping his wife in the house with her kids, and he's getting all bent out of shape because he's got to get to davening for Shah. 1 second. Right now, does she need your help or she doesn't need your help? Make a decision. If you've decided my wife needs my help right now, okay, if you've looked at it logically, and she genuinely does, sometimes they don't need your help, they just need a little bit of a good word, just acknowledge how hard they're working. Okay, that's all you got to do is say, wow, that's really tough. Wow, you got a rough job. It's usually enough. Then you go run off to shul. But if she really needs your help, my wife was once, I was at the door, ready to walk out to go to Minyan, and my wife said to me, I think you better stay home because I have a fever. I don't feel well. I think I need your help with the kids. I said, no problem. I stayed home and helped with the kids. Now, there were many times where I'd get to the door when the kids were, and my wife would say something like, oh boy, this is really rough. And I'd say, oh, do you want me, should I stay home? She said, no, just go daven. Because she didn't want my help at that point. All she wanted me at that point was to say, yeah, this is really rough. Wow, this is something. All she needed me to do is make some sounds. Just go, That's all she really needed. But here, she was telling me, I need you to stay home. Once she said those words, I stay home. Then I asked an Adam Gadol if I should have died. I just wanted to hear how he would put it. And he said to me, listen, your wife wants you to daven in shul. If she's asking you to stay home, she obviously needs you to stay home. And no problem, so I'll stay home. I'll daven by myself later. That becomes your mitzvah. And that's what law of avarti mi mitzvasecha v'lo shachachti. I didn't forget what my whole purpose is over here. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. Okay, somebody else had a question. Yeah, please.
What's more important with certain elements of a mitzvah, like praying with a minyan or praying with purity and enjoyment?
That's a great question. He's asking, what's more important, praying with the minyan or praying with purity and enjoyment? And a person says, well, when I daven by myself, I daven with greater purity and enjoyment, especially because the guy next to me doesn't annoy me by davening too loud and so on and so forth. It's a great question. And the answer to that is we have to do the purity and enjoyment within a given framework. What if a guy would come along and say, I have greater purity and enjoyment in having my Shabbos meal on Thursday night. So I put out the Lechem Mishnah and the do everything, and I sing Shalom, but Thursday night is my night. You understand? You understand instinctively, we can't do that. Right. In your mind, that's different. We need to know what is the framework, and within that framework to fit in our purity and enjoyment. There are certain things I don't enjoy at all. I got to do it anyway. Going to a minyan, davening with a minyan is part of that framework. We have to daven. You don't enjoy it, learn to enjoy it. Better to keep the rules the way the rules are, as opposed to the spiritual feeling. It's wonderful, the feeling of purity and enjoyment, but one has to daven with a minyan. Because what feels good is not always an indication of what's important. Because you could feel good in davening with purity and enjoyment. There's more potency in your tefillah when you daven with the tzibur without purity and enjoyment, as long as you're davening with the tzibur. So it's always, what's the framework? That's the basic framework we have to fit in, and anything else is the icing on the cake. It's the way, what do you call it? What's the expression? It's the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, the whipped cream on the cake, the what do you call it? The baseball cap on the head, whatever it is you call it. That's all after you fitting in the framework. It's got to fit the framework. Okay, yeah, Tuvi, go.
There's two worlds.
Yeah.
Many worlds. There's Hashem's world, and then we all live in our own world.
Right.
And we're supposed to go to Hashem's world. We can't put Hashem into our
Right. Don't bring Hashem into your world. You go to Hashem's world. Well, we do bring Hashem into our world, but don't, give him a break sometimes. Yeah. Don't force it in. Don't force it in too bad. In other words, don't make up our own religion. Don't make up our own. Do it Hashem's way. And sometimes a person has to have a little bit of common sense. What does Hashem really want from me now? When my father was nifter, I think it's 10 years now. We're going on 10 years. So the first thing my brothers and I decided when we were sitting Shiva, it was that we will never fight with anybody. The minhag is that you lead the davening when you're an avo for the year of mourning, so you become the shliach tzibur. That's the minhag. And my brothers and I decided that we will never do that. We'll never, if somebody else wants the Amud, we're gonna let him do it. We're not gonna argue with him for it. Because we understood that obviously if we want to merit my father's soul, the biggest merit is to show that we'll let somebody else do it, is to not be selfish, even for that. And number two, because we knew that if our father saw that we were fighting over something, he would have cracked all three of our heads together. Because he taught us not to be imbeciles. He taught us that you're supposed to be thinking and using your brains a little bit. And obviously, what does Hashem want under these circumstances? Do you really think Hashem wants you to fight with somebody to be the Shliach Tzibur? Do you really think that could possibly be Torah? And therefore, we never did. I don't know. I certainly never did. I don't know. My brothers also certainly never did, because it was just the obvious thing. And so that's what the Torah is teaching us here. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow.